Good evening. Happy Friday. Welcome to my living room. My name is Lana Labonte, and I am here to support, uplift, inspire, and empower you by sharing my personal life experiences because I know what has worked for me, and I hope to spark something within you that inspires you to be the best version of you. All right. It's been a heavy week. Who hasn't been feeling it? I know I have. When I feel, and I've been feeling the feels, all the feels, what I have noticed is it's almost like every day I go through this. What's the energy? What's the pulse on the collective? What am I feeling? Because I feel like if I'm feeling something, even subtly, then I know it's magnified out there. When I am feeling something exceptionally heavy, then I know it's super heavy out there. When I feel that, that's usually when I stay home. I'm just going to say, that's when I try to find the compassion, the patience, the grace to create my own sacred space, to sit in whatever's coming up, no matter how, because that's essentially what it does, is it's not always going to feel good. But one of the lessons that I have learned with all of my trainings, all of these years that I've been doing this work all my life, seeking to heal the parts of me that were unhealthy, that were pain, My pain has been my purpose. And so it's been my motivator, my inspiration, my driver. Like, hey, it's not that I'm trying to run away from it. I'm just seeking how can I heal this so that it's stronger, that makes me stronger, that makes me more resilient. It's like, if you don't exercise a muscle, it atrophies. And so if you have pain, then it makes it more challenging to be able to exercise muscles because then you're also kind of like, you can end up hurting yourself more, which is one of the reasons years ago, hi Mish, years ago when I was seeking to have cortisone injections into my neck because I had severe nerve pinching in my cervical spine, which still happens. And I was reminded by my neighbor slash doctor, and I didn't even know that he was the doctor I was getting referred to. This is when I lived in Italy. And he said, Lana, I know that you are a very active woman, and if I give you these shots, he essentially said, you're not going to feel the pain. And when you feel nerve pain, that is your body's signal that it's healing. So any form of pain is, of course, it's seeking your attention, but the actual physical pain is an expression of healing. Now, that's hard to comprehend for most people because we've been raised in a culture steeping in it that we're supposed to numb out that pain. We're not supposed to feel pain. We're supposed to seek out ways to feel good. And so therefore we deny the pain. Yeah. And so here's what happens though. When you ignore the pain and you numb the pain, you numb the joy. So you may think you're numbing it out with drugs or whatever it is, but that'll come back stronger every time. And the more you cover it up with numbing, let's say, we layer on numbing solutions and sensations or pills or drugs, whatever it is we put onto it. What we're doing is we're degrading our ability, our sensitivity. Okay. And I'm sharing this from my personal experience. And I say this because, and I'm using my arms as an example because the pinching in my nerves in my neck were shooting down my left arm. I literally could not turn my head to the left, and I couldn't sleep on my left side for months, like 6 months. And it was extremely painful. I had to prop my entire left side up on pillows. And it took me 10 visits to the acupuncturist to even be able to move my neck in my head. They tried to give me, what was it, oxycodone or Vicodin. It was Vicodin. That made me so sick to my stomach. And I don't like drugs as it is, okay? And then they gave me, later on, it was Neurontin, gabapentin, which was to numb the nerve pain, which didn't work, by the way. And it wasn't until 4 months into taking that I started to read the contraindications, because essentially when you read them, it says it's non-narcotic with narcotic-like effects. And I'm over here going, narcotic-like effects? Every 8 hours you're supposed to take it, and every 8 hours I was feeling like this agitation like coming up under my skin. I distinctly remember that sensation, and it was not me. It was like this drug was this morphing. It had a mind of its own, and its own character. But essentially, I would get easily agitated by things. Now, I didn't react, but I was watching this happen, and this was back in 2007. Okay, when I was still working in the government environment as a contractor. And that's when I was in a toxic environment. So, on top of that, I had literally this skin crawling sensation that was also a result of my work environment. But going back to my doctor and getting those shots, it took me 4 months to get in to see him, because the Navy didn't know how to give a referral, and that was a whole nother conversation. But, and I was a government contractor, so they still had this mindset of, treating me like as if I was just a regular Navy person, whatever. So he essentially explained to me, if I give you this medication, if I give you the cortisol in your neck, cortisone, I always get those two mixed up, and I'm in the fitness arena, people. Anyway, so he said to me, if I numb this and your nerve is telling you that it's healing, it is working, it's doing what it's supposed to do, it's telling you, because if that was numbed out, I would potentially harm and hurt myself, thank you, hurt myself, and I wouldn't know for months. And as a result of that, could end up damaging myself in some way even worse. And I'm grateful he pointed that out to me, because I also learned that when you have those injections, they eat away at the synovial fluids and the discs in between the vertebrae if you do get those. And so you can only get those for so long. Yeah, he's an Italian doctor. That's probably why. You can only get those so many times before it's not going to work anymore. And then you've already basically degenerated areas that wouldn't otherwise have been degenerated. So I was extremely grateful, because that's where the universe, and I've been blessed to have people who tell me the truth, tell me what I need to hear, and don't candy coat it. And especially because I'm pretty authentic. I mean, I'm who I am. I don't try to, some people have their interpretations and their opinions of me. But that doesn't mean they know me. In a lot of cases, what I've learned over this course of my life is, unfortunately, the people who have opinions of me, it's none of my business. But interestingly enough, they're far off, because it just shows their projection of their own stuff. And that's something I've had to learn over these years. I still feel naive to the fact that, wow, people don't like me. That sucks. It sucks being judged. It really does. I'm like, dude, have I been that judgmental in my life? Not so much as of others as I have been of myself, to be totally honest with you. If anything, it's been more like, why I've been so hard on myself. And maybe that's why I've attracted people who are harder on me, because I am so hard on myself. And then they proceed to judge me even harder, which is interesting. So I might have just talked that out loud, which sometimes we do that, right? So my injury happened on my way home from work. And I should have been on short-term or long-term disability, however you want to look at it. But this was back in 2007, 2008 timeframe. And I didn't even know I was paying for it. I didn't know I could use it, because I was still coming from a mindset of work, take care of yourself, especially when you're single and you're always thinking, who's going to take care of me? I have to take care of me. So that's where I was back then. I mean, my work ethic was stronger than my self-care ethic. My balance and the pendulum swinging was extreme to one side, not the other. I was a workaholic. Let's just say it, But I also played hard too outside of work. Especially living in Italy. I mean, hey, I had the best foods, I had the best wines, I had this amazing lifestyle, and so I thought. It was quite toxic inside the workplace and also in my own relationship. So, excuse my raspy voice, I'm thirsty. We have slightly colder weather right now. Cold front whipping in. And so, the reason I got on here tonight, and I'm exhausted, I'm tired. Like, I could have just gone to bed, honestly. And this wave of sleep just came over me, and I was like, oh my gosh, this week's been rough, okay? And in a few ways, and I know why it is for me, but I wanted to also talk it out with others and to see how you're doing. How are you feeling? And although I may not see your comments till later, or maybe, it flashes too quick, but whatever I can respond to, I will. But essentially, who hasn't been feeling the heaviness all this week? Like, WTH, what is going on in the universe? And I know for myself, and I have repeatedly over the past several weeks, because so many changes have occurred in my life. Like, my daily ritual routine has significantly changed since Veterans Day. When I look at my life and I know, okay, you just changed something that was a very consistent routine for years. So that's a grieving process. And anytime we make a change in our lives, no matter how major or minor it is, that's like death. And we have all these mini deaths in our lives. So when change is occurring, it's a death of an old cycle of your old life. You have to acknowledge that, wow, that's no longer going to be a part of my life anymore. Wow, you're going to miss that. That's a void that's left in your life, right? Isn't that an interesting, it's a space, an emptiness, that lack, that, oh, what's missing? Oh, that's what's missing. Something that's been familiar for all this time, and now you have to acknowledge that it's no longer going to be. But at the same time, in that little mini instant, you can go, oh, I'm going to miss that, and I'm grateful to it. You have to celebrate and honor it first off. But also get excited that the moment you've let go of one thing, you've created space for something new. It doesn't happen over night, right? I haven't wanted to leave the house. Exactly. Yes, that's exactly it. And that's what I was saying in the beginning. Like, when I feel the heaviness on me, then I know that the collective is feeling it that much stronger. And the reason why is because I feel like I pick up on it before it hits. I go through my little shake up, and it's not quite as drastic as what I witness is going on out in the world. And I think it's because of all the years of all the practice and all the things I've been doing. And I'm very grateful for my own tools and rituals and just my own personal practice. But something I sat with last night, and here's something I don't, and the reason I'm aware of this, because I really, and it just reminded me while I'm saying this out loud. People who think they know me, I'm going to share a vulnerability. I have never really expressed, I mean, I've seen a lot of stuff going on this week. I know there's been some people leaving this earthly realm. I have actually struggled with depression all of my life. But I haven't always wanted to talk about it out loud. Because I don't want people to look at me like, oh, you poor thing. Because for myself, I know how I can deal with it, and I honor it, and it sucks sometimes, and I go through. But you know what? We all experience it. It's not a label to limit us, but it is a moment that when we're in it, we acknowledge and go, oh, and there's a mosquito tormenting me here. Get over here. They love me. When you experience deep rest is what depression is. That's when you're contracting. That's when you should be in that deep reflection and awareness of, wow, depression is usually something that you're mourning that has been and it is now past. So this is why we say depression is usually related to the past, and anxiety is related to anticipation of the future. So when we go through the cycles of grief, acknowledging that when we do go into depression, that's just part of the cycle of grief. The mourning, the mini death of what has been, that has created a void because it will no longer be, that you need to acknowledge, honor, appreciate it, and go, oh, okay, I'm no longer going to be having that in my life, or that person, or this, your pet, or whatever it is for you. It could be a relationship, it could be a family member, it could be an actual physical loss, a death. It could be a job loss, anything, high valley, whatever it is. You have to acknowledge that it's okay, because we go through these cycles all our lives. And if you can remember times in your past when, yeah, it really sucked and you remember losing something, but you also remember you got through it and what came as a result of it. So when one door closes, an even bigger door opens. That's what I like to say. That's what the Italians would say. Quando si chiude una porta, si apre una portone, right? And so when we get into the deep rest, that's the moment to go within to replenish. Deep rest is for replenishing. Depression is not a death sentence. Depression is not a bad thing. It's just the connotation of this mental health world that everybody wants to make it sound like it's, oh, you poor thing. Oh, we have to treat you with kid gloves. It's like, no, can you just acknowledge that I'm going through some grieving right now? That's really all this is. If you can do it for yourself, then you can give others permission to do it for you too. Not everybody's in that space. I'm just sharing my personal experience around how I handle it. When it comes up, and it has come up throughout the course of my life, I haven't always been so graceful with it. I haven't always had the patience or the compassion for myself when it has arisen, or should say, sunk me down, right? And in the past, the way that I've handled it, surprisingly, I like to sleep. I will curl up in my bed because my bed is my cozy, comfy space. I like to be cuddly. And for me, especially when I'm alone, if I'm not in a relationship, or, which has been a lot, by the way, over the years, it seems, even when I have been in a relationship and they haven't been around or something. But ultimately, I like to just be cuddled up in my bed. Doesn't even mean that I'm crying. It's just sleep feels good because it's nourishing, and it's filling me. It's repairing me. It's preparing me, right? It's replenishing. So we do have to honor when that comes up, and when we are in these times of deep rest. That's why for me it makes sense. Oh, I'm sleeping. I'm in my bed. I don't necessarily like that. Maybe I sleep the whole day away, but maybe that's what I need. Can I also bring in some ease and grace to the situation, as opposed to the shoulda, coulda, woulda? That's part of our conditioning. That's what we need to decondition ourselves of, to unlearn, is this need to be productive of always doing rather than being. And so depression isn't a bad thing. Now, and over the course of my life, I can honestly say, I was laying with myself last night, just like, wow, if people only knew. It's like, wow. And that'll go in a book. But that's one of my other modes too, is I love to clean, because it feels like when you clean, you shift energy. And so I have a tendency to use it as kind of a meditative process when I do it. And I've done that for years as well. Cleaning since I was a kid. I like to organize and to kind of gather my thoughts as I'm doing it, and infuse, the beautiful vibes of newness, because what happens when you cleanse and you clear is you're clearing out that old space stagnant energy. Like I started moving boxes yesterday and I was taking pictures of stuff and posting on Poshmark and my eBay. And because I'm trying to get rid of a lot of clothes, I've got way too many. I mean, I was thinking about it the other night. I'm like, my gosh, I've got almost 200 things depending on where I've got it posted, I've got over 200 things posted. And I'm like, wow, and that's not even the crux of everything because I've got so much more to post. Can I get my stuff down to 100 items of clothing or less? Wow, wouldn't that be nice? If it's really good quality, I think so, maybe. But it's quite humbling when you start going through your stuff and realizing, I feel like I have too much, way too much. And so again, we're going to go back to this past week has been extremely heavy. And so much, we're judging ourselves upon why am I not doing when maybe you just need to relax. Can you actually have compassion with yourself? Can you slow down? Because if you're feeling the energies and in such a way, especially if you're reading the news, like stay away from that anyway. I haven't really been paying attention to it, but some things came across my awareness and I was like, oh, okay. I see. And there were a couple days here where I was like, man, can I make some time to make a video? Because I feel like people need to hear some reassurance that it's okay. Especially this is the holiday season. I mean, let's talk about that. What comes with the holidays? Some of us who are a little older, holidays usually carry some melancholy because we got some memories built up around these days. And because they are significant holidays, ritual days, I can't help it by say that, by the way, that typically those are the most imprinted into your mind. Like I'll just say from my childhood, when I was younger, I'm originally from Boston, Massachusetts, from a big Irish Catholic family on my mom's side. And my dad was a single child on his side, Portuguese and French Canadian. And on mom's side, she was the middle of 9, and there's 2 more, so a total of 11 of them. But we used to have these big gatherings in Somerville at my grandparents' country house. And there were tons of us cousins. We'd be, for Christmas, under the tree. We'd be running all over the place. And this was like, the tongue and groove board door walls, wood. And I think there was the picture of the dogs with the poker cards playing around the table kind of deal over the couch. And one year, I would say that had to be 78 or 79, was the year of when Kiss did their movie. Do you remember that movie? I don't remember what it was called, but it was kind of like dark and I don't know. It was the time, right? So back then, it was really a big deal to get with my family and to see my cousins, and I had my favorite cousins. But then my parents decided the crime in Boston had gotten so bad, they moved us to northern Maine. And when I say northern Maine, I mean like you couldn't get any further north than the last exit on 95 before you hit the Canadian border. From Boston to the last exit on 95, that's a huge distance from family. And a kid, that's like a country in our minds. It's so freaking far. It's not like you can just jump in the car and say, I want to go to so-and-so's house. So it was crazy and it was very sad. We moved all that way away from family. And so there was my sadness growing up. I had a lot of change at a young age, a lot of different things happening to where I can associate, Bangor. I lived in Holton, Maine, honey. Hodgson is where our home was. Holton was where my dad had his pizzeria, sub shop. And that was right before you hit Woodstock, Canadian border. Crazy. Small towns, I don't know which is worse. Small town, big city. Small towns, they think they know everybody's business. They make up their business too, right? Conducted, okay. Yeah. And here he comes. He's tormenting me. He likes to torment me, these mosquitoes. Zanzare in Italian. So yeah, we experienced a lot of change growing up. And when I was young, I was very, very energetic. I was doing everything. I was outside with my sisters. You couldn't get us inside, especially when there was snow. And I was climbing trees, and they'd come out. And I will never forget the times. I remember the northeaster is what they called it in Boston. We had a house in Dorchester and a brownstone in East Boston, and literally we had pictures of us in our snowsuits. the the doors to get to the front door of our house in Dorchester, there was the brick stepping stairs to get up to it. It was completely covered all the way up. And same thing happened up in Maine too after that too, another time. But that was more common up there as opposed to Massachusetts. Anyway, you can tell I'm tired, right? It's just some just crazy memories that I still hold. So over the course of my life, all these different changes, I learned to adapt and learn to overcome. It doesn't mean it's any easier. It's just there's more resilience, there's more adaptability, there's more flexibility, there's more, oh, okay, change. Hi, Carl. How you doing? I am good. I hope you're good too. So, because of all the change that I experienced, all the adversity, the changing from school to school, like I went from Dorchester, where was my first school, and I'll never forget the Catholic school I went to, and it was my kindergarten year, and they were like, "It's time for nap time," and I'm like, "I'm not tired." That wasn't a question. They were telling me to lay down to sleep. And I remember my mom must have come to get me, and they told her that I was probably a problem child because I didn't want to go to sleep. And she was like, "What's the problem?" She wasn't tired. Anyway, that was funny. But my next school, my first grade year, was in actual Boston at another Catholic school, Sacred Heart. And then we moved to Maine, and from first grade, because it was in the very end of the first grade, in the winter time we moved up. So that was 1981. And it was a huge transition because we went from the people we grew up with, our family, people we knew, to this small town where I had to start all over again. St. Mary's till fourth grade, and I was just, it was tough because small towns can also be brutal, and especially what we went through as kids. I think I've shared the story that me and my sisters, there was a pedophile in that small town. Funny thing was, is my mom thought she was going to keep us safe in a small town, moving us out of the crime of Boston, and then a small town where 2 doors down from my dad's pizzeria sub shop, there's a pedophile right there, right? Anyway, and the hardest thing was growing up and having the friends that I had just made, my sisters had just made. Now their parents are like, they don't want them hanging out with you, and you're like, try to wrap your head around that as a child. The child is like, what did I do wrong? It's not that I did anything wrong. It's you're punishing. And the reason this is coming up is because I started to reflect upon sometimes how certain people have assumed me to be a certain way, yet they can't understand that a lot of my growth has come as a result of going through certain traumas in my life. Because the more trauma you've experienced and healed through, the more heightened your awareness, your sensitivity, your ability to see intuitively, knowingly. You tap into your intuition, your gnosis, not just what you know, but what you feel through your senses. And so I've experienced this, especially in the spiritual community. And I was thinking about somebody from about a year or so ago when I was in a program, and they couldn't hold space for me. And I had held space for them so many times. And I was like, I'm trying to express to you how I feel. And it was like this. They were trying to tell me how I felt. And that's been a pattern in one of my old wounds. And I'm aware of it. And what I found myself in the end realizing was this person wasn't willing or open because they were in their own survival mode. Their ego was so strong, their ego wanted to be right rather than actually see what was happening. If you were following along with the untethered soul, it's the acceptance of what it is and not trying to make it something it isn't. And so because it rubbed some wound in them, they didn't want to acknowledge. In fact, they wanted to project their stuff on me. And interestingly enough, I came to the conclusion of today, I was like, wow, that person actually projects, that I seek attention in a way that takes away from her. And I was like, but I never ever did that. It's that survival mode where a person thinks, I believe that person is seeking attention. And there's like an envy underneath there underlying. It's like if you're judging the person, that means you have a problem with them. If anybody ever judges you, it's because you're showing them their wound and they're punishing you for it, right? It's not a bad thing. Actually, what I really appreciated about this whole situation and what transpired was it got me to acknowledge my wound and to recognize that core wound was I have a really big problem with over the course of my life where people have not wanted to hear what I have to say, but tell me how to feel or how I should feel, or that I don't feel that way, that this is the way you're supposed to feel. And I'm like, wow, what gave them the right to determine my feelings? But I also see that as me being vulnerable takes a lot of courage. And so that's like in your face. And again, it's my spiritual name. Sundari Kiddinkar means beauty, love of God is in your face so bright, kapow, like you can't deny it. It's like, booyah, if you don't like it, the good stuff and the bad stuff. And so so when someone comes at you, you also have to recognize when you're trying to defend or explain yourself. And that's also been a pattern of mine because it's that fear of rejection kind of thing where when you're explaining yourself, you're giving them more power than they deserve. It's not their business. You don't have any need nor reason to explain yourself to someone, especially when they're not willing to listen. Whew! That should go power back. Call that power back. You catch yourself explaining someone who puts you on the defense, stop it right there. I've caught myself and been like, why did I do it again? Oh, there you go. Yeah, justifying your feelings. You don't have to justify how you feel whatsoever. You don't have to defend yourself to anybody, especially when they try to accuse you, attack you, gaslight you in a way that's not who you are, and it's not you. That's just them trying to validate themselves. And they punish you for making them feel inferior. It's not that you're making them feel that way. It's that they're being rubbed in a way that they're not owning. And so what's interesting is when you're owning your feelings and you're authentic about it, it makes them go on the defense because they're not owning theirs. So in a lot of these different cases, I'm thinking out loud about several different occurrences over this past year where in each occurrence, and this is this has happened about 4 or 5 times in the past year, where the person has turned it around like, this is how you're feeling. And I'm like, I just expressed to you how I felt. I didn't ask you to break it down or therapize me. I don't need a doctor. If I've expressed it, then I'm owning it. Now don't discredit or disavow it, because that's what ends up happening. So as I share this, what's most important is that we own it. That it doesn't own us. That we don't explain it to others. That we're able to be okay with it. Because not everybody else is going to be okay with you feeling, because they're not necessarily okay with feeling. That's where the punishment comes from the other side. That's where the gaslighting, that's where the other person can't hold the space for you because they can't do it for themselves. And I'm not really here to say those people are bad. I'm just recognizing hurt people hurt people. The only reason they're trying to punish you or make you feel bad is because they already feel bad. Is because you're just illuminating, right? You're illuminating to them what they're unable to own in themselves. Ouch, right? So I feel like I've been the sacrificial lamb over the course of my life in many different occurrences throughout the course of my military career, where I've been the one to lay upon the sword or gone through something that was extremely unjust and saw no, unfortunately, no justice served in return. But at the same time, it taught me valuable lessons over the course of my life. Like, do unto others as you want done unto yourself. Like, I don't want that to ever be done unto another person because I've experienced it. And so it sucks that I had to experience it, but boy, I learned the lesson. It left the imprint. It left enough of the compassion for myself to also hold it for another. So I believe that when we learn that really hurt and we acknowledge that really hurt, each one of those cases that I've explained over this past year, those people have no idea. They just assume whatever they do. And that's okay. But it honestly, truly hurt my heart in each one of those cases. Like, wow, it really fucking sucks to be judged. Like, truly, I didn't ask for that. All I asked for is, please see me. Like, see this person in front of you? I'm a human. I feel this. Why would you deny me other than denying yourself? Mosquito. Oh yeah, come here, come here, come here. Come here, little bastard. Sorry. Parasites. Vampires. Sucking the blood out of you. Seeing energetically, I've had to learn to call back my energy, reclaim my power over all of these years. The hardest one I'm still dealing with. And that's the one where all of my stuff is with my ex in Italy. I can say, oh yes, I have to let go of it. I have to relinquish my stuff because he's claimed it and doesn't want to give it back. But that still fucking sucks. I can still own that and not let it own me. It sucks. Yeah. You can't make people do what they don't want to do. Whatever it is he thinks or judges about me, I have no freaking clue. I'm just really pissed off because he took my sunflower picture. He said he liked it, doesn't want to give it back. I'm like, it's not yours. You didn't buy it. But sometimes life sucks like that, right? You can, in this case, I mean, okay, I just say it, I'm a Leo, like my den, my home, everything I was building for me, for my house, my bed, my couch, my TV, my living room, dining room set, all of that stuff. Carefully picked out all of the plates when I was in Italy and across the world, and it's like all the money I invested in myself and someone else gets to enjoy it. Like, and then, I'm saying this out loud just because it's here. And I expressed how I felt about it. And that was an on and off again relationship for many years. And it sucks because not once over all those years, I needed help. And I told him that. I said, you know what? It's been really fucking hard over these years. And he hasn't been there to help me. And he sold his house in Tampa. You'd have thought, I'm just saying, you got all my stuff. You could have offered to help me. Like that would have been the chivalrous thing to do, even if you're in a partnership. You just sold a house. I know you're making good money. I've been struggling for years just to renovate my house, to do things here. Not once reach out and check on me kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah, there's some pretty shitty people out there. Not so great humans, let's just say. And that's the last thing I would have expected from this individual. So, straight up, I guess I'm still kind of reeling from that. Um, my mother's birthday was the 26th. His birthday was the 29th of November. My dad's birthday was last Friday. And I mean, it's just been really crazy. And I am so sorry for you, Valley, because that's not right. And I hear so many really horrible stories of people fighting over their parents' inheritance and stuff. Like, how sad is that? I've known people where one girlfriend, this happened more than once with a couple girlfriends, where they were the caregivers for their parents. And their siblings, who were nowhere to be found, came swooping in and stole everything. And different types of occurrences and stories that I've heard, I was like, God, I'm glad my family's close, and that if anything, my sisters and I, no, we're not like that. In fact, we wouldn't have a problem with splitting. It's not even a question. Like, it's just disgusting to think that people are that money hungry. That's how, but see, that's again, hurt people hurting people. It shows you how much they're in survival mode because they don't feel worthy. They feel they have to take. That's what survival mode really is. I'm afraid I'm not going to have enough for myself. Oh, it's a shame. But you know, the forgiveness has to be for self, and you know that. They're going to live out their life, and you know what? Cancer is what eats you from the inside out. The guilt is there. Their body knows it. Might not be aligned with the mind, but the body demonstrates, you know. This is something I try to express all the time is pay attention to your body, because whatever you're not listening to in your body, like, it's telling on your mind. And people who do things that are not in alignment with their heart and soul, their bodies will demonstrate it. Their bodies will scream. They will end up with cancers. These are the people that, you know, people think, oh, I wonder what was why they got cancer. Maybe you don't know because they were holding it in all that time. They never expressed it because they suppressed it. So, I mean, if anything, sometimes they do you a bigger favor and it just sucks. It's the same thing with my case. It's like, you know, thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars easily, for maybe even more, in the hundreds if you really get down to it. But, you know, it just sucks because when it comes down to it, I had a point where I realized all of my energy had been literally infused in every single piece of my stuff, my items of clothing, not my clothing. He sent me mostly my clothing. Some things are missing still, and they may still be there. Who the heck knows? Refrigerators, washing machines, you name it. He's got everything, all my kitchen stuff. I was like, wow, you know what? And I don't know how many of you have been following long enough to know that I do my own meditations where sometimes I intuitively know to call back my energy, because there are people who will try to feed off of you. And they don't think you know. And I never believed in this type of stuff. I never believed in black magic until there was this one person that was pulling some stuff on. And I was like, really? I literally sat and I called back all my energy, given or taken, knowingly or unknowingly, with my permission or not my permission. I call it back now and I claim it, right? Later that day, that particular day I'm talking about, this was a couple of years ago, I got the nastiest phone call of how I needed to repent and all this stuff, and I needed to bow down and ask for permission, for forgiveness from her. Like, she was acting like she was some sort of a god or something. I was like, wow, look at you. You thought you were good, that you could you suck off my energy. That's crazy shit, Mish. Oof. Oh my God, that's spooky. Um, I still don't let that one have power over me. I do know it exists energetically, and I know things have been done. I've sensed it, but I haven't like gone, oh my God, you know what I mean? Like you can be aware of it, but not allow it to take more of your power, if that makes sense. You can still reclaim it. Like I didn't give you my permission. So you have no power over me, even though you may have gotten away with it for a small bit of time. And surprisingly, it does work because it's in awareness. It's in that intuitive knowing of thyself that you can sense when something is off energetically. Someone's trying to get their tentacles into you, you can also have them removed because you'll feel it. When you get really heightened in your senses and your intuitive awareness, you'll feel when people try to siphon off of you. I think you got me. Ugh. You know what I mean? Like it's a real thing. And this is the energy of this past week that I was talking about, that the energies have been so heavy. Something's looming in the cosmos. Something doesn't feel right. If I were to be honest, and I don't share a lot of this, I had a couple very unusual encounters this past week as I was doing some meditation regarding AI stuff. And I was presented with something. And I said, oh, hell no. I am not interested. I would rather stay in my human form. You do not get permission because I'm not interested. And I said it several times. Now, with that said, there's also another aspect, and I don't want it to be confused, that we've been under this spell for so long, not our entire lives though. Yes, there's been the conditioning. There are layers to this stuff. There are phases. They've been dripping it out, let's say. This has been generational. This isn't the first time. It's a repeat of history, of spells, of resets, right? That I don't know exactly when it transitioned. I was in Italy in 2012. So what felt like was still somewhat, I can be honest about one thing. From the time I had been in Italy, I left Italy the first time in 2008. And then I went back in 2011 to work for NATO. And I was there until 2013. In that period of time between 2011 and 13, something did shift because I felt like something was different while I was in Italy. Now, it wasn't as significant as I'm noticing it now, the Mandela effect stuff and all that, because there's a lot of stuff for me that I'm like, no, I remember things differently. The Berenstein, not stain, bears kind of deal, you know. And Y2K, I was stationed in Belgium, and I worked in Italy. I was down in Vicenza a couple times. Actually, no, I'm sorry, 2000, I was TDY. I was still stationed in Belgium, or in NSA. And I was TDY to Belgium, and that's when, yeah, I remember that actually. And everybody's freaking out thinking something big was going to happen, right? Is that right? 98, 99. No, 98, 99 is when I was in, yeah, no, I was in Belgium. Because 2001 was when I left Belgium. Everybody was freaking out thinking something was going to change on our computer systems. I don't know why they thought something would change. It seems like they knew, because I think they thought that something with the digital coding and the operating systems. We were working a lot more with the Microsoft, but at the same time, I worked a lot with SunOS and Solaris, Unix-based systems, as well as DOS and Windows. My computer geek days. Intel IT. Oof. Working on all those intranets. It's so crazy just thinking back in another life or two or three. I feel like the cat o' nine lives. So anyway, it's really, it's how do you feel it, if anything? The thing with what's interesting is that since I took my trip to Italy this last time, just recently, so I left here on the 29th of August and I came back on the 6th of October. Before I went on my trip, something was already coming in my neighborhood. Like I literally, first off, feathers always show up to me, but not the way they were showing up to me, signifying my trip. My Instagram and my Facebook account got disabled right before I came back, and I was sharing all of my feathers, and I got a whole pile of feathers from everywhere I was going. I literally would see a feather everywhere I went, at least one or two, if not more. But even before I left on my trip, I got 3 feathers the day before I flew. I went for my walk along the water. And I don't even know how to explain it, but it was very unusual because I was just trying to enjoy my day out at the waterfront. I liked sometimes to just be at peace and be by myself. And it was reminded to me about how many, what's another term? People's Republic of. Somebody had come up to me when I was sitting at the waterfront and was like, I said, he somehow started talking to me. I was talking to myself. I'm always just talking to the birds and everything. And he proceeded to say, "Oh, do you live around here?" And then he wanted to sit down next to me. I'm like, "No, thank you. I don't want you sitting next to me." And I said, "Where are you from?" And he's like, "China." I'm like, "Oh, well, how long have you lived here?" "Oh, like 20 something years." And I'm like, "Really? Huh. Go figure." Yeah, sure. And now you're presenting yourself to me. I realized I'd seen him once or twice along the path, but it just felt like it was an interesting encounter, if you say. And I do believe people are assigned to watch people. I don't really care what gets heard or said anymore because honestly, yeah, a lot of questions in that. Somebody told me there's some million, like 5 million spies in this country. But you know what? We got sold out a long time ago. You know, when you see made in People's Republic on your paper, on your clothes everywhere, it's like, is there anything sacred anymore? I'd like to start making stuff myself and doing, made in the USA again. This is made in Haiti. So, that's why we became so dependent outside of our own country. And one thing I liked about being in Europe, and the same thing happened in Europe too, because my Italian landlord and I had these conversations around how much stuff got outsourced. And even in Italy, where you would think it says made in Italy, all they have to do, these are the corrupt rules of fashion and such. All they have to do is make the last adjustment to fashion in Italy, like maybe put the label on it. I don't know, maybe stitch a button or something on something, and they can say it was made in Italy. Just like when I was on a train years ago with the guy and we were talking about Italian olive oil, and he said, well, Spain's the regulating authority over olive oil, and most people don't realize that it can be a certain amount of olive oil from all over the world, and then only needs to be a certain percentage to be called Italian or Spanish or whatever olive oil. I'm like, that's pretty messed up. But that also made sense according to the research I did on the canola oil and rapeseed, and how the epidemic that happened in Europe regarding there were people who died. They were cutting the olive oil with rapeseed, and as a result of it, women and children and men too were dying because somebody was greedy and they were cutting their olive oil with rapeseed, and that was the cause of the toxins and why people got sick. So, this is the world we live in where where's the integrity? Where's the authenticity? The deception, the lies. It's like always goes back to knowing your sources. We've gotten so overwhelmed with these big box brands and conveniences that instead of buying local and knowing your farmer or knowing where your source is, where's your originating source? Where did you actually, okay, so you bought it from Target, Walmart, or you went to Aldi or your Costco or your Sam's, your big box places. It's like, where did they get it? Do you follow the trail? Like when it ultimately comes down to it, you only got like what, 3 or 4 or 5 companies at the very top, and it all comes down to it. Yep. And same thing with bees and honey. This is something a girlfriend told me in Italy. She learned that they would cut the honey with sugar. And it's like apparently a known process. Like this is known in the industry, like white sugar. Now, it's just mind-boggling to me. I've heard that that's how they even feed the bees sometimes. No wonder some of the bees are dying. My sister is her and I were trying to take a beekeeper's course, but she's gonna get a beehive and put it on my dad's property up in New York. So that's exciting. We were talking about that earlier. So really, when it boils down to it, we need to go back to the basics as much as possible. Yeah, you got to know your farmers, and it's like if you do consume any type of dairy, like okay, so this is a conversation I was having this morning, and it's something I've sat with because when I went whole food plant based, it was a result of food allergies. Okay, in 2010, I had the mercury removed from my mouth, my dentals, because the military still uses mercury amalgam fillings. And I had clean teeth before I went in. And so when I had them taken out and I detoxed, I did everything you're supposed to do, the heavy metal detoxing. The doctor, the dentist, he used the dental dam. He did everything perfectly. Within a couple months, I had a huge reaction to wheat. I had prepared food at home and I ended up having this reaction. My dad even made pizza that night using wheat flour. My stomach was so bloated, and it's something I've dealt with all of my life is bloating. But I had a rash, and I know when I have reactions like this is related to something like this. And I do believe it has something to do with glyphosate, but I also think we're not supposed to be consuming grains. That's a whole nother conversation, but I had a rash all over my abdomen, starting up right where the duodenum, where your rib cage starts to separate, across my chest, arm creases, anywhere the lymphatic area is, essentially where your body's trying to basically push it out of the skin. That's the first place it's going to try to excrete it and like get rid of it. Itchy like a banshee. And then I was bloated and constipated for like a few days, 2 days, 2 to 3 days. So it was on a Friday night when I ate. The Saturday morning I woke up like this, and I was just in so much I thought it was going to pass quickly. It was like that for 2 days. On the Sunday morning, I literally got up and went to like 5 o'clock in the morning down to the local drugstore, and I was reading ingredients. It's not the same as celiac. They did a celiac test and they said, "Oh, you're not allergic," because but the thing is that test is not provable of anything, because the true test is they got to go in while you're still consuming it, cut out a piece of the duodenum. See, none of this testing stuff makes sense to me. If you know your body, you don't need a test to tell you. And the doctors don't know what the hell they're doing. They're just going based on what they've been told is supposed to be the effective practicing of medicine. And so I go down to the store to find something to like some antihistamine. I'm reading ingredient lists because I don't want all these colors and all these other toxins like high fructose corn syrup. Next thing I know, I'm getting the liquid, thinking the liquid was going to be the best option, and it turns out it's got high fructose corn syrup, and I'm like, like the best thing that I could find was capsules with liquid in them with no fillers. But I that was later on down the road. So it really creates brain fog, grain belly, bloating, inflammation. Your body goes into attacking itself because it's really not something that our body can break down properly. And anything you eat over time accumulates, and your body creates more resistance to it. So I mean, you might be okay for a good portion of your life, which I supposedly was, until all of a sudden you hit crisis point, right? Your body will go into crisis mode, which is that kind of reaction. If you're going to deny that, then you're denying that you're even, like, your body's expressing something you are denying is a suppression, right? Like, you need to trust your body. I don't agree with the hard physical working, because I'm somebody who's always been hardcore fitness and always had issues when they said you should eat more fiber. All it did was cause me more constipation. So I was diagnosed with what they call IBS, which is a pretty much a general term for we don't know what's wrong with you. And by the way, doctors will never tell you I don't know, because they have too much arrogance and too much ego to really admit that they don't know. So they'll typically act like over the years I had issues with not yeast infection. I never had problems with yeast infections. I had problems with UTIs. Now, if you do a little research, apparently chickens can carry bacteria that doesn't even need to be consumed. You can be in the presence of it and it can cause a UTI. Anyway, you don't have to listen to me. I'm not telling you that, you should or you shouldn't. I just don't believe that grains were something that, if you look at how, would you go eat the grain off the chaff? If you have to process it, then it's a processed food. Therefore, it's going to be harder on your digestion, no matter who you are. And all this sourdough stuff, I mean, essentially, I just think it was just a quick fix for the times when people felt like they had to have something. Because what is it? Essentially, people use it as a filler for their bodies. It's not actually nutrient dense. Do you know that this will really chap your butt. Did you know that millet's not a grain, though? Millet's actually a seed. That's a difference. That's seeds and grains, totally different. So when you look at the ingredient lists on foods and it tells you the so-called nutritional value, what is really interesting to learn that those nutritional diagnoses, the analysis of the nutritions is pre-cooked. So once you cook it, it's not the same. That's one of the deceptions. I learned that about dog food. Most of the animal food, and I learned this because of my dog, most of the animal food that is listed, the crude analysis of the dietary, nutritional, blah, 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 turns out there's probably not much left. It's probably just like eating cardboard. In fact, I don't know how we can feed our animals that kind of food, because essentially what you're feeding them is cardboard. Like, poor animals. No wonder they're always staring at us like, what you got in there? Let me smell your breath. Let me check out what you eating. Come on. I had a girlfriend, she still, to this day, she cooks the food for her pets. I'm like, I love my pets. I just didn't, I did get to that point with Angel. And I was doing that with Buddy for a long time. I was feeding him bananas. He loved bananas. And he loved sweet potatoes. Yeah. But it was a lot of work, too, and a lot of time consumed. And when you're the only one doing it, it's a little rougher, even with a partner. So you really need to just recognize your own body, because your body's wisdom is always going to speak to you. And my mom knew before I knew that I was allergic to the gluten, and especially the wheat, because what people don't know is they clear the wheat fields using glyphosate. So most people's issues with their guts is because their guts have been permeated with glyphosate. What have they done recently? All these tests of our urine claiming that the majority of people have a high count of glyphosate in their urine. Whether it's coming through your tap water, whatever water you're picking up, whatever's coming out of the sky, even if you're walking out. See, this is one of the things that I was trying to express about when it's really important to ground. It's important to walk on the ground with bare feet. But if you're walking on the ground and somebody's treated the earth with glyphosate, you're absorbing that up through your feet. So all of the, yeah, leaky gut. So, and it's because it all crosses the brain blood barrier. And most people are totally disconnected. And again, we're going to go back to the enteric nervous system because that is your second gut. And that is what connects all of what's going on throughout your entire body is the enteric nervous system. You know, the vagus nerve is all included in all of that. The wandering nerve is what the vagus nerve is. The yeah, the vagus nerve is the one that also pulls on the 10th cranial nerve at the back of the skull. So it's fascinating stuff, but if you don't get to know your own body, again, I'll go back to where this all started was when you numb the pain, physical, emotional, or mental, you're numbing the joy. How can you be so wise and tapped in if you're numbing yourself out? The short-term experience of pain, like a lot of times people are constantly trying to seek to eject out of pain, when in reality, just spend a little time in it. It will pass quicker than you could ever imagine, than the lifetime that it could endure. Because the longer it lingers, the more it will fester, and it will basically infiltrate every aspect of your life. That's what runs the show, is the unresolved pain. That's why people running around with their unmet childhood needs as adults are flinging shit at each other and expecting each other to fulfill their needs. Like, you're supposed to make me feel better. Like what I just expressed about what I've gone through this past couple of years in regards to people trying to tell me how I feel is just essentially their unmet childhood needs and their pain up at the surface. And instead of confronting their pain, they're punishing me for presenting it to them. I had to come to terms with that. And I didn't really acknowledge or recognize that for them right away. I saw that there was something that they were avoiding in themselves. I mean, I can see that. I could tell you exactly what it was for each of the people, but it's not my place. It was important for me to acknowledge it. And the reason I could see it is because when you spot it, you got it, because you've had it. You can't see in another what hasn't been and been a part of you, right? Because I know that for myself. And if I hadn't seen I'm practicing your lessons of sitting back and watch. It's powerful, isn't it, Valley? When you can sit in that seat of awareness, of consciousness, be like, wow, look at you. Wow. Like, the last time I went to defend myself, I was like, ooh, that hurt. That hurt because I didn't realize I was being pulled back into an old pattern with somebody who wasn't even valid in my life to do. But they were gaslighting me because they were trying to punish me for their inability to want to feel what they were feeling. Life is a series of lessons. And that's exactly it. So when you're able to sit in that seat of consciousness, you're able to see where it's coming from. Because where it is in the moment is just an extension, an outreach from the root. And then it just kind of goes, if you're willing and able to allow it, it's like you just kind of sit back and you go further back and you're like, oh, it's back there? Check that out. We're back there again. I manifested the past into the present so that I could actually heal it. And that's what I speak about. When your inner child feels neglected, it will call in that third party to replay the series of events that we didn't get to fulfill and fully feel. So if we don't feel through something fully, it has to have that energetic completion. And it's a beautiful thing when you're able to experience that. So kudos, brava, brava. Proud of you. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Both of you, Mish and Valley. Oh my gosh. So noticing the energy trends. I wrote a lot of stuff down. I'm not going to read over all of it, but can you meet yourself with patience? Can you bring grace to the situation? Can you breathe? Slow down. That's what it's teaching us right now. That all of the stuff that's happened this past week, if you feel it's heavy, it's trying to hold you back to not try to act. If it holds you back and you acknowledge that, oh, it's not time to act. No time to act, no time to react. If you feel the weight of the world or whatever it is that's coming up, it's meant to slow you down in reflection. Like, what is surfacing and coming up for you? For me, I had a funk washing over me. I literally was like, wow. I had a couple events that happened that made me feel like a little left out. You know, I had some girlfriends that got together and I didn't get the invite, or if I was invited, because again, I'll go back to my social media was removed, so I'm no longer in the group. I'm not in a lot of groups anymore because my account's gone. So I have this other account that I don't even know who even sees me. It's no big deal, actually. It's less stress. On the other hand, it does suck, but whatever. You know, it's not my first rodeo. It's not the first time this has happened. But I felt a little left out. I was a little sad. And it's like, dang. I saw pictures and I'm like, oh, why didn't I get the invite? But then one of those people that's in, maybe two of those, no, it was one of those people. One of the people that was in the pictures, I was like, oh, well, maybe she arranged it and maybe she didn't want to invite me. Yeah. And it sucks because you're like, you know, I even laid in bed last night and I thought to myself, you know, I can forgive that person because we had a falling out. But that person was also trying to tell me how she observed I was feeling. And I was like, I just told you how I felt. I didn't ask you for a reflection of how I'm feeling. And it was more invalidating than it was allowing, honoring. And again, hurt people hurt people. Like when someone doesn't want to hear you're being vulnerable. I got attacked instead. It's like, oh, so you can't hold space for me, but yet you want to be healer. Like all these people, because I'm in the spiritual community, and they can't even hold me. And I've been holding them all this time. I'm like, fuck, sucks. I'm like, you know, it is what it is. I'm just being raw right now. I'm just like, you know, there's a lot of people hiding out in the spiritual community. No, there's more than one person. It's not just one. Like I said, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 5. I was like, dang, what's wrong with these crazy ass people? It's like, essentially the hard part was when I had my implants removed. And then when I lost my dog, it's like, all these people saying, oh, I'll come check on you. I hope you're okay. They were doing it all on social media. But when it came down to it and I sent messages like, oh, when can you come over? It's like crickets. But yet I'm the first person they'd come to if they needed something. I'm like, oh, okay. I value me. That's all that matters. But yet, those same people will have an opinion about me too. So whatever that is, none of my business. But apparently it's important to them. So there's been lethargy and heaviness this past week. Many of us have felt unmotivated and tired. I kind of pushed myself a little bit yesterday and it kind of helped me. So I started, again, like I said, I taking pictures and I'm posting things on eBay and Poshmark. And then, wow, you know, it is what it is. It's okay. And then I went, oh yeah, you were upset because your routines changed. And I've been going through these waves. I've been riding, I'm literally surfing and riding some waves right now, changing my daily routine. You know, like I said, my mother's birthday, my ex-partner's birthday, my dad's birthday, which was probably a highlight because he's fun to, you know, celebrate. And then it was like, oh, this other thing happened with the not being invited. And I was like, oh, why wasn't I invited? I'm like, dang, this is just crazy. I think I got it. Tell me I got it. Oh, you little booger. I thought I had him. Mosquito. So, how are you feeling? Whatever's coming up, let me read this one. And I posted my post with my quote. What you feel is real, as it is the great reveal of what you need to heal. Don't discount, nor suppress what you need to express. Find a safe space to cry, scream, yell or moan, punch, kick, pound a pillow, do what you need to do to move it through. You have to feel it to heal it. Because if we don't, that's when dis-ease comes ramping in. And it really is through my own trials and tribulations that I've learned this. This is my personal experience. That is how I speak. I'm not making the shit up, people. I can't make my life up, I'm telling you. And I believe everything is meant to be felt and experienced. And when we stop labeling and judging it, it's freeing, it's liberating. Because it's the labeling, the limitations that put us in a box. And you need to allow your human to grieve when you're going through these mini cycles of death and change, And you say we're here to celebrate all those cycles. And something that came across the other day that I thought was really clever and reminded me of is how essentially, like I said, we label ourselves, we limit ourselves, we put ourselves in boxes. And then we're looking for the next box to fit into. Like we're never satisfied with the box we're in. We're looking to see if we can fit into another box. Because remember what I talked about with the thoughts. The thoughts are basically hijacking you from your presence, from the moment. Oh, thank you. I love you. When we are in our thoughts, we are in the past and the future. We are not in the present. So the moment we are thinking about something, we're looking to solve something because a thought essentially is a problem. And so with that thought, we're stuck in that mode because the mind wants to hijack you. I mean, we were talking about it being Wetico, right? The mind virus, the battle, the real war is the war of the mind, and it's a battle within. So the thought is essentially a problem, and the mind uses that problem as a ways to, it's no different than the government and all, create the problem so I can offer you the solution. The mind does that shit. If you spot it, you got it. And so this is how some of us see all these patterns and connect dots, because we recognize how clever our own minds are, that we can recognize how clever the external Wetico is, right? The Wetico on consciousness. So present the problem, and now I can work on the solution. It keeps me relevant, codependent, right? That's what the mental codependency is your mind making you depend upon it, as opposed to you breathing and just staying present with every breath, and then becoming aware, making the unconscious conscious of those thoughts. Oh, there you are. Okay. So you can master your breath, then you master your mind. And once you master the mind, you can keep it under, like, I see you, get back in line, right? So when it tries to hijack you, you bring it back to the breath. You bring it back to the present. Your power is only here and now in the present. When you go into the past or the future, you've been hijacked from the gift of the now. I mean, the languaging says it all. Your power is right here, right now. It's all in you being neutral and not choosing this or that, which is past or future, right? It's the duality. It's a game of duality. This is the polarity of this life. It's always hijacking you. Past and future is actually included in the present. But when you're way back here, remember pendulum swinging, way back here is one swing of the pendulum, and it's the opposing swing of the opposite direction of the future. And so the present is the middle way. It's when you need to be in the neutrality. The neutrality doesn't allow you to get hijacked into those two. But they both exist when you're present. Your power is more powerful, full, get it? Wholeness. Your power is in wholeness when you are present in the now. It is a constant bringing yourself back into this moment. It is the breath awareness through the workshops, through all the tools. You know, there's so many different things. I have a whole playlist of Kundalini yoga. There are kriyas, there are meditations, there's breath work. Y'all have done the fists of anger, fists of fury. There's so much more that we can explore. And I will be offering things in the future. If you happen to be in the Clearwater area on the 1st of January, I am holding a very intimate, private gathering in my home. And it's going to be a rebirthing, a vision board. We're going to do some yoga nidra. It's going to be really beautiful with some gong meditation as well as dancing. And it's going to be beautiful. I'm really excited about that. So that's that. Oh, there you go. I love that. Call your energy to your energy healer. So bring it all back to you. Just reclaim it because it's yours. Nobody else deserves access to it but you. When you are in your power, what you do, we are in our highest frequencies, which are our frequent keys, which when we're in the presence of another, unlock each other's codes. Frequent keys to unlock each other's codes. And then we remember, like puzzle pieces, we're all members, putting our pieces back together. This is just the way I've connected dots. That the reason we're so much more powerful in union, in community, humans in unity equals humanity, is because the power is in the present. And so the more we come together with this common goal of we're going to up the vibe, we're going to increase each other's, inspiration, we're going to inspire one another, we're going to breathe ourselves powerful so that we're full, and in the presence of another, we unlock each other's codes. It's like, you can't get any better than that. That's what this life is about, is really just remembering our power, our abilities, our gifts start to come to light. I'm hearing noises in my house. I've had rats before. It's not a fun thing, by the way. So, can you allow yourself the gift of presence and rest? So when things become heavy, oh yeah. Being present is your gift to one another. The more present you can be, as opposed to being hijacked by the mind or, again, the mind is the only thing that's going to bring you out of the present. Even if you think it's another person, it's your mind that's given them the attention. And your thoughts are essentially the currency that you pay for your experience. So, challenging times when you really sit with it, if you allow it to be. So the other thing I posted the other day was every now and then we go through cycles when we've outgrown our environment, work, lifestyle, partners, friends, and even family. And these major life changes signify your growth, but don't discount the ways in which they contributed to it. Change is like death. You must honor the stages and the cycles. Acknowledge and grieve. Reflect and accept. Appreciate and celebrate. And see how it has served you in your life's evolution. Yeah, currency like water. Well, and that's the play on the words too, right? And I've talked about this before, and this is why I love languaging, and why I had such a cool mom to always pay attention to the words and the language. Like, I think she'd be so proud watching over me saying and learning the way I have, because I've taken what she taught me to another level. That current, like energy, currency, like the sea, and money. It's all connected. Of course, we're maritime admiralty law, and it's all the languaging that they use in the Black's Law Dictionary and all that craziness. So The times when you feel out of sorts are typically signaling where you're mourning a loss because of a change in your life. Simple as change in habits, routines, and schedule, or as profound as the loss of a loved one, close pet, or human. And the holidays often bring up the melancholy for those who have made several trips through them. Be gentle with yourself. This too shall pass, but at least enjoy the experience and the ability to acknowledge it. This is truly the gift of this human experience, is it's not always going to feel so great, but you're here to feel it all. So why would you throw back the gift that God has given you? Source, universe. You were given the gift to feel. So why should you label it as good or bad when all of it is the experience and the gift that is given to you? It's us humans that judge. You remember that last chapter about that I was discussing? It's us that have decided that God is a judging God. No, it's actually a projection, isn't it? Of an unhealthy, toxic human. Yeah. There are no mistakes, only choices. Only choices. So if you think you missed a take, just make another choice. The mistakes are just experiences to self-correct. So it's an experience and it gives you an opportunity. Okay, you're not happy with where it landed, make another choice and it'll take you somewhere else. Yeah. Continue those trips and those experiences. When we're truly feeling, it's always revealing what still needs healing. You have to feel it to heal it, no ways around it. Just allowing the energy to be acknowledged and honored. Anytime we suppress feeling, it unconsciously will express in our daily lives. Express it, don't suppress it. Yeah, I know it's been rough, and I'm here for you, because I'm going through it too. You know, I'm not infallible. I'm human too. I feel no matter what's going on in your life. Yeah. So I had posted on James's, James had a really great video the other day, and I was kind of listening to him talk, and I don't know if he meant to say it or not. When he said the word naive, I heard naive, and he was breaking it down, and I was saying nay in some languages is no. So no Eve, and then I thought, it sounds like missing discernment coming from the feminine, which is discerning, right? I'm going on another one. This is so fun. Yeah, we're all a team. And missing discernment in cognitive ability. Could it be pointing out the imbalance of the masculine and the feminine, just like swinging on the pendulum of not being present? And it was piggybacking on the series of readings I'd been going over and explaining how when we're in the past or the future thoughts of the mind, we've been hijacked from our presence in the present where all of our power resides. Even being in this decode or conspiracy truth-seeking world can be a way of hijacking you from living your present, the gift of the now. So, I love to watch all this stuff. I watch all sorts of stuff. And in fact, there are times I'm going, I need to just turn this off. I don't need to be listening to everything. Like I gotten into such a routine because I have certain people I like to listen to. And you need to take a literal technology break, detox. Yeah, it's all powerful. So, so we have had some people passing lately, and I want people to remember it's easy to get caught up in what's going on out there, but remember here, yeah. And you have to step back and cherry pick what is going to serve and uplift you as well. Or are you looking, sometimes we do also look to serve in a way that's distracting just as much. And I acknowledge that in myself sometimes too. And so when I saw some of the stuff that was being posted on social media, there's a big difference between pain in the body and what you feel and the pain is temporary, meaning you don't need to end your life over it. Because if you look over the course of your life, there's always been something that's been painful that you still made it through. You're still alive. It didn't break you. If anything, it always served you. But it's a question of whether or not you allow it to take you down or you take it and use it to lift you up. Like use that as your fuel because pain has purpose always, in all ways. So pain will pass quicker than the sooner you sit with it and give it compassion and the attention it seeks than if you try to suppress, deny, or run from it. In any case, if you don't deal with it now, it will fester as it lingers longer, and it will not only be your unconscious driver, but it will keep coming up stronger and stronger. Under the pressure that builds as you resist it, it will persist. Pain won't kill you. It's there to guide and teach you. Everything is energy. You're here to be the alchemist and transform that pain into your purpose. You are the medicine. Remember that. You are always what you need, what you seek. We think we need to seek someone else to heal us, fix us. You know, maybe you listen to me, but it's to spark you. It's me reflecting back at you. You are the medicine. And what you seek is you, ultimately. We all seek ourselves. And I've had so many crazy experiences where I'm like, always comes back to me. What you seek is you. And it's this whole coming back. And it's like, here I am again. Even if you experience the void, you experience the oneness, you get into the Godhead space, you've done whatever, right? It's, you recognize that the absurdity of like, it's sometimes nice to reset that way because when you get there, it humbles you. It can maybe explode your head too, but it's humbling to recognize that's all of us. And why aren't we much kinder to one another? You know, it's even when someone comes at you and they're being hurtful because they're coming from a hurt space and they can't hold space for you, you can still smile and be like, okay, it sucks. You can't see me, and just walk away and bless them. Bless them because if anything, their pain brought you up higher. Yeah, exactly. The subconscious runs the show until it doesn't. And when you get sick of your own shit, you just finally get rid of the shit, right? So energy is everything. Learn to harness your breath, become present in awareness of your mind, and recognize the patterns of old programming that have been running your life so you can shift and transform them. This is life mastery. Master your breath, master your mind, master your life, and ultimately master your domain. It's really that simple. I'm still working on it though. Because life is a divine comedy and humor is its middle name. Cosmic tickles. Just giggle. Oh, my sinuses are getting a little stuffy because we got the heating on. I am so appreciative to all of you. Thank you so much for showing up on this Friday. I'm like over here just like ready to like pass out sleep. I am going to go to bed and get a nice good long sleep because I deserve it. And if you feel the heaviness, give yourself permission to slow down, to rest because you need it. You deserve it. Stop being a human doing and be a human being. Yeah. I love you too. Sharing is caring. If you know anybody else who could really, really use these messages, spread it. Spread like wildfire. Click the like. Smash the notifications bell. Ding, 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 ding. You know how that goes. I love you so much. I appreciate you for showing up again. And before I forget, I think this will be our next book. So this is a really short book, and I've got about, I don't know, maybe I have 3 copies of this. I can't find the other ones right now. I don't know if you've ever heard of The Politics of Experience by R.D. Laing, his renowned challenge to the sanity of today's normal man. This is a pretty cool door, and actually has a little note in here from my mom. A little, a little note of her vulnerability. So, he's also the author of Do You Love Me and the Facts of Life. There's some other books as well. It's this is really profound, and I remember when I was still in high school, one of my friends who was going to school for psychology, and he said this was one of his favorite books, and I was like, oh, really? And it's like I said, it's a little small book, and it's 190 pages. Politics of Experience. So I may do like I was doing before, where I just record it and upload it, just because I don't want to have issues with the internet cutting out, even though we've been very fortunate tonight. We are in Mercury retrograde shadow right now. So I think you'll appreciate this one. I may have to bring out the dictionary for some of the words, but they're not that bad. Again, I love you all. Have an amazing Friday evening. I love you.